chat. Hey guys, this is Grimlok 24 and I'm back with yet another monster video. In this video I will be hunting a Duramboros, who is a very large kind of grassy ground type of monster. We'll get to see him pretty soon. In the flooded forest, usually you will find him starting off in this middle room. I think it's like 5 or 6 or something. We'll see in a second here. I can never remember the room numbers. Kind of general starting out stuff. His weakest elements are fire and lightning. For Duramboros, I used to use hammer on him, but if you get later on, like the G rank version, and maybe even as early as the high rank version, his horns gain a whole lot of hardness, and it can be a little difficult to get headshots on him with the hammer. So I like doing the sword form unsheathing attack on his head. It's a lot quicker than a super pound with the hammer, and it's still pretty dang effective on him. So as you can see, Duramboros is a huge, giant, kind of like a mountain type monster with a big ball for a tail. His tail is what he'll use for a lot of his attacks. He kind of uses it as a bludgeon and throws himself around. So once again, you'll want to make sure that you're sheathed for a lot of the fight if you're not actively attacking him, because he covers a lot of ground really quickly just with his size and how he throws himself around. So there's some real specific strategies with this guy. Obviously, you'll want to make sure you're not spending really any time underneath his tail, as he can just pound you with it at any time. A lot of his attacks consist of tail slams. There's a few different types of them, like you'll see that, well actually I'll just try to mention them as he does them, because they're kind of hard to explain without seeing them. This is one of his moves that you really want to take note of. He'll start spinning around kind of like a ballerina or something, and spin for a while, and then he's got a few different moves that he can finish this off with, but he'll also be heading towards you while he's doing the spin, so you kind of want to make sure that you're not letting him get too close to you. So that one was, he just kind of slides forward and throws his tail forward. There's not much you can do against, like, to punish that once you've avoided it, so you kind of just have to let him do that and then just move on. So this attack right here, you want to be careful for. You want to make sure you look at the first one, and if he pounds his tail down to one of the sides, then he'll always pound it down to the other side. And so if you're trying to get a headshot on that attack, you'll also notice that he kind of looks in the same direction that he slams his tail down, so his head kind of moves to each side as he's slamming his tail down in those sides. And that's something that you can kind of strategize and plan for if you're trying to get a headshot on him. So that was a single tail slam there that was straight down. He also has one where he'll do it twice. It's just kind of random as to whether or not he'll do that. On a lot of his attacks like that, where he attacks with his face, his tail will still kind of swing in a direction, or it'll slam against the ground as well. So you also have to be careful for that you're not sitting underneath his tail, even if he's not attacking with his tail, because it can still hit you. I'll cover the things on him that can break, and that is his horns. If you hit his horns enough, you'll break those, and you'll really see it when they break. They just kind of almost get completely destroyed. His tail can break twice. The first time it breaks, it kind of just shatters a little bit and gets a bunch of cracks in it. And then the second time, you'll break a large portion of the outside of it out, and it'll fall down on the ground, kind of like a normal tail, and you can carve that. And then he's got one attack that he usually will use it several times in a fight, so I would like for him to use it before I really mention too much about it, because it's, once again, just another one of those attacks that's kind of hard to describe unless you're able to see it in person. And then finally, he's got one last part that'll break. See, yeah, here's his horns, and that's just extremely obvious when those are broken. You know, half of one of them is gone, a large portion of the other one is gone, so that's his horns down. And then his final thing that'll break is actually the humps on his back, which is kind of hard to believe at this point, because it doesn't seem like there's any way you could even hit them, but there are some ways to get him over on his side, which we should be able to be able to see at some point. So now he's enraged. He's pretty much going to do all the same stuff, just a little bit faster. So here he's doing this move again, and hopefully he'll do the move. He has a move where he'll jump way up in the air and kind of slam his tail down, and this is kind of key for several different things. Yeah, here we go. So he's going to fly way up and slam down like this. And so he sits in this position for a really long time. It's a good opportunity to either hit his tail or his head. And so, now that you guys have seen that, I will mention, earlier I was talking about how his tail will shatter and then it will also fall off. If you've at least shattered it, then once he does that move, you can actually run up to that tail, and if your weapon is sheathed, you can mine his tail, and it'll either give you parts of him, or yeah, it'll give you like a tailbone or a hard case, just kind of depending on which version of Duramboros you're fighting. Yeah, and so there's one more thing I would like to show you that also has to do with when he's spinning around. It can be kind of a difficult thing to do, but what you want to do, hopefully he'll do it pretty soon here, is you want to attack his legs while he's spinning. And, I'll just let him try to do it again before I say much more about it. As far as weak points, if you're using a cutting damage, okay, here, I'm going to try it here. So what you want to do is let him pass once, because his tail will be too close to his legs, but then you want to get in there real quick, and then just start trying to attack his legs. Fortunately, I did not get it there. He actually has much better balance if he's enraged. This is something you usually really only want to try to do when he's not enraged, because he gets kind of like a balance bonus. And it's a lot harder to knock him over. He's got a couple charge moves like that. One of them, if he starts from far away and goes slower, he'll kind of headbutt through, and then you'll see his tail will also swing far to the side, and that's something that can catch you off guard really easily, is that tail. And then he's got another one where he moves a little bit faster, but he actually won't come all the way to you. He'll stop just short and do a headbutt, and his tail will stay in place, but it's a really good chance to get a headshot on him after he brings his head back down. But yeah, weak points, if you're using a cutting weapon, then his weakest point, alright, let's see if we can knock him over. His weakest point is his legs, and if you are, alright, see, so I got him in the legs there, and now he's falling over, and this is your chance to hit him in the back. So you want to hit him in one of these two humps on his back, and that's his weakest point with either weapon, but it's not accessible at all times. It's only when he falls over. He'll fall over if you knock him over like I just did, and then also, when he's out of stamina and hungry, if he tries to do that big spinning move, he'll fall over on his own every time, so that's something to look for. Back to the weak points, if you're using cutting damage, you'll want to attack his back legs, providing you've already broken everything. And then if you're using the hammer, his weakest point is his tail. But even when I am using a hammer on him, I don't usually try to hit his tail too much, because it's fairly difficult to hit, especially if you're using any attacks that do very much damage. So I'll try to break his tail, but then after that, I won't mess with it too much more. So, as for rooms that you'll see him in, it's mainly just this room, the room we were just in to the far south, and then you'll also see him occasionally go to room 1, which is the first room outside of the camp. He sleeps in the same room that mostly every other monster in the forest sleeps in. That's the one to the far northwest. We'll probably see him go there near the end of this fight. So here he's doing his big tail swing thing again. Hopefully he'll do the... Pretty much every time you want him to do the big jump up, because he just gives you so much time to attack him after that. Yep, here it is. So we'll run in and get some hits in on the tail. Hopefully we'll get to at least shatter it. I'll start trying to put some hits in on his tail, and you'll probably get to see how difficult it actually is to hit. That right there just now is the attack I was talking about earlier, where he hits it to each side and looks in the direction of that hit. gets in on the tail. Of course, it's always dangerous to do since that's his primary method of attack. So you just gotta get in there and then get back out. Hope here that he does the jump up. And I mentioned near the beginning of the video that he has 3 different moves. I believe he's only done 2 of them so far. He's got the big slide there. That's the 3rd one where he tosses himself. So he's got a slide where he just kind of goes along the ground. He's got the move where he jumps straight up, and then he's got that slide that he just did, or the throw. Get a hit in here. Get out. Now that would have been a lot more dangerous if I hadn't had evade distance, because I probably wouldn't have gotten far enough away without that. So that's something you have to take into account. If you don't have evade distances, it's even more dangerous to try to get in there and get an attack. Hopefully he'll go straight up again. Usually he'll end out with his face facing his target when he goes straight up. So that's one thing to be mindful of. So if you're not his target for who he's spinning towards, and you can kind of tell just in which direction he's going towards when he's spinning, if you're not his target, then you'll definitely want to be mindful where if you're on the other side of him, so if he's between you and his target, then you'll want to be mindful because his tail can come down on you and do a bunch of damage. So now he's going back down to this southern room. You can tell which room he's going to because if he digs down and goes away, then that means he's going to this southern room here. If he goes to room 1, which I mentioned earlier, then he will just walk straight there. He won't actually dig into the ground. Alright, so there I've shattered his tail. Now I have the ability to mine it if he does his big jumping attack again. That's pretty much the only opportunity that you have to mine from his tail is when he's just laying on his stomach like that. And it is important to note that even though you can mine this form of his tail, and then you can also break his tail off, or a large portion of it, and then even after you've done that, you can still mine from his tail. But either way, it's still only 1 charge. You can't shatter his tail and mine it, and then break the section off and then mine it again. It's always just the 1 mining charge that you get. I guess while we're at it, I'll also note that Duramboros has much, much higher health than most of the monsters that you've encountered by this point. Don't be surprised if it takes you most of the quest time that you have to kill him the first time you fight him. He just has a whole lot of health. Trying not to really hit him anywhere other than his tail so that he doesn't die before I get to show everything I want to. See if we can knock him over again. One thing to note is you can knock him over like this, but he starts to gain more balance the more you try to do it, so it'll start to take more work to get him to fall over. Alright, so now you've seen that his back is broken, and it kind of like makes them turn into almost volcano-looking things. It's really exposed there, and you can see that the humps of him on the top are shattered, and you can really, it's pretty noticeable when it's broken. So now, finally, all I have left to do is just break this section of his tail off, which I'd really like to be able to show, because it's definitely a very obvious thing. Hopefully he'll jump straight up here and I can mine from his tail and show you guys that as well. Okay. Run over here, mine from him. Tail case. Now let's see if we can't get his tail to come off. Now careful when he gets out of that. See, I showed it to you right there. When he gets out of it, he'll do kind of like a small slam on the ground when he pulls his tail off. And it doesn't hurt, but it'll hit you, so it'll kind of ruin any chance of a last hit that you tried to do. As to be expected, you will notice that if you were very close to him on a lot of his slam type attacks, it will cause tremors, which will ruin attacks or ruin chances to attack him back or leave you vulnerable for a follow-up attack from him. So that's once again another thing to be mindful of. I've often been asked on him if his tail will actually just come off entirely, and it will not. Hopefully you'll get to see on this final break what it looks like, because his tail is still very much intact at the end of it. It's just missing a large portion of like the shell. So now he's gone back to this middle room here. Sharpen my weapon real quick here now that I think about it. So that headbutt right there is what I was talking about earlier. His tail swings over to the side and will hit you. It's got a deceptively large range on it. Okay, so I'm not going to try to trip him up here since I've already broken his back. I'd rather try to get his tail if he'll hopefully jump straight up. No, not this time. Might still be able to get at least one hit in. Okay. Another thing worth mentioning is if you are trying to hit his tail and you're on the outside of it, it's deceptive when he does a tail attacks towards you. It seems like he's able to stretch it out just a little longer than it is, and it kind of reaches a further distance than you think it will oftentimes, so you'll definitely want to be careful of that as well. I usually don't hang around too much around his tail, because it's easy to get hit by that stuff. Hopefully this time he'll jump straight up and then we'll probably be able to knock his tail shell off. Kayama's feeling pretty brave there. Alright. So we'll run towards the other end of which way he was going. Of course his tail's there. There he goes. So now you can see that it's kind of like the outer shell of it has come off. There's still a full tail intact there. It looks kind of like a boulder now. And then this right here is carvable. And once again, if I hadn't mined him already, I would still be able to mine his tail if he were to get into that position again. But once again, it's only one mining charge that you get off of it, so I won't be able to mine it anymore because I already have once. So now I'm pretty much just going to start hitting on his legs and trying to finish him off. I've kind of been avoiding hitting him much so that I could get all of these different breaks. Carve his tail, and there finally he's going to the third room that he will normally fight in, which is room 1. Once again, he just walks straight there, so it's easy to tell that that's where he went. And he's hungry, so hopefully he'll also show what I was talking about, where if he does his big spinning attack, he just falls over on his own without any attacking his legs. So hopefully he'll try that. He'll usually do it at least once or twice when he's hungry. Yep, here it goes. So he gets one good spin and then he falls right over. And he'll have his back facing exactly where you are, so he gives real easy access to it. pretty much all you have to do is just wait for that one spin, and then you can start running in on him, and his back will be right there. On this attack right here, once again, his tail swings around, so even if you avoid his head, it's still really easy to get hit by his tail. If you just happen to like dodge right over to the side out of the way of his head, his tail can still hit you, so that's, once again, something to be mindful of. Kind of the moral of this fight is you just always want to be cognizant of where his tail is, even if that's not the attack he's doing. In most cases, if you kind of hang around just right underneath him, a lot of his attacks won't hit you. That right there is one of the few attacks that will hit you if you're just right underneath him. But if he's trying to attack with his tail already, then usually you can be right underneath him and it won't. You'll be pretty safe. I was actually pretty lucky not to get hit by that. That's the hardest attack to avoid right there, because it's kind of hard to tell when he's going to do it, and you kind of just have to almost be a little bit lucky to have moved the correct direction away from it. Alright, so now he is limping, so he's going to try to get away towards where he sleeps. I will point out that when he leaves this room, he will go straight to where he sleeps. He doesn't go to this room to the north here before that. And what he will do is he'll limp towards right about here, and then he'll dig down kind of like he does over here when he goes to that southern room, but instead he'll dig down here, and he'll just head all the way up to that northernmost room. I might kill him before he gets a chance to do that, so I'll mention it now, just in case. That move right there is another one to beware of. It's pretty easy to see when it's coming, because he spends such a long time winding it up, but when he finally does swing his tail around, it comes really quickly. So there he goes, he's digging down, and now he's going to head straight to where he sleeps. Which is probably a good thing, because I don't think this would be the most fun room to fight him in. Kill these jerk ants who are trying to kill me. Okay. Assume he's asleep at this point, so we'll come on in here. There he is, off in his corner. Gives you a nice opportunity to attack his back there, so if you have a good type of attack that you can open with, then this is a really good chance to do a huge amount of damage with it. Alright, he's hungry, so he's going to fall over on this, and so when he falls over, his back will just be facing right towards me. Okay, so apparently he's not hungry, so I was mistaken. So I'll just go ahead and knock him over anyway. These goofy Mellinxes, you want that bug net for sure. There we go. And that is Duramboros. As you can see, I wasn't using the strongest weapon I have, but even so, that was about a good 15-20 minute fight, and this was a low rank Duramboros, so that should go to say something about how much health he has. But anyway, yeah, that should give you a really good idea of this fight. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you have any special requests, let me know in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Feel free to join me on my stream at twitch.tv/Grimlok24. I try to stream every night, and I hope to see you there. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later.